Hi friends, I'm Quenby Gallahan, licensed marriage and family therapist. I've been a therapist for over a decade, and this channel, The Grateful Therapist, is all about mental health and personal growth. So if you like learning about those kinds of things, make sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss my next video. Today's video is all about boundaries. Therapists love to talk about boundaries, so it's probably a word you've heard before. But what are boundaries? And what exactly does it mean to have good boundaries? Don't worry, this video is going to be for beginners. I'm going to keep things really simple, and we're going to talk all about boundaries. Let's start with what are boundaries and why are they important? Simply put, boundaries is your true yes and your true no. It's what's okay with you and what's not okay with you. They're basically guidelines for how people in your life are supposed to treat you, whether it's family members, your significant other, or friends. It's really important to have good boundaries. Why? Because when someone doesn't know what your boundaries are and you haven't let people know the right way to treat you and the wrong way to treat you, people often push your boundaries unknowingly. And then what happens is we get resentful, angry, frustrated when someone pushes our boundaries. Let me give you an example from in my own life that might help illustrate this. I once had a friend who was late every time we got together for lunch. And the first time she was late, 15 minutes, I just didn't say anything because I'm like, no big deal. But then she was late the next time 20 minutes, and the next time 20 minutes again. Now what happens is if we don't communicate about this kindly, gently, firmly, if we don't communicate that we really need them to show up on time for our lunch dates, each time it happens, we get a little more resentful and a little more frustrated. We also might ask ourselves questions like, why is she late? Does she not care about meeting with me? Does she disrespect me? Sometimes it's not that, but it's that the person just doesn't even really know what your boundary is around that. Some people might be okay with the person showing up late all the time. Maybe they expect everybody to be late and it just doesn't bother them. But for me, it did bother me. And what happens if we don't say anything about our boundary, like, you can't show up late each time, I need you to show up on time, that would be our boundary, is we build up resentments. And what happens when we build up resentments against our friends, our family, our coworkers? Well, some people get really angry and then they end up blowing up at the friend over something kind of small. Some people will totally pull away. Rather than say anything, they want to avoid that conflict, they'll just totally pull away and stop talking to their friend. Some people, when their boundary is pushed repeatedly, they get a little passive aggressive and they say, if she's going to be late for me, I'm going to be really late for her the next time. People do all sorts of things, knowingly or unknowingly, when their boundaries are crossed. So the most important thing to do is let the people we care about know what our boundaries are. So for example, with my friend who was always late to lunch again and again, the best thing I could have done would be to say, hey Susie, I noticed the last time we've got together, you've been late, and I really love meeting for lunch with you, but I need you to show up on time for our lunches. Because if you don't, I sort of feel like maybe you don't care about meeting with me, or you're not respecting my time. And I love getting together. You're one of my best friends. We always have such a great time, but I'm wondering what's going on, and do you think you might be able to show up on time? Oftentimes the friend will say something, be like, oh my gosh, I had no idea, or I always run late, I know it's such a problem, thanks for telling me, I totally love meeting with you, no disrespect, it's a problem I'm dealing with in my own life. It can start a great conversation, and it also lets them know very clearly what's okay with you and what's not okay with you. I think you might be surprised that communicating with people about your boundaries actually makes you closer in the relationship. It actually makes people feel more connected and they trust you more. Why do they trust you more in the relationship? Because they know you're going to tell them the truth about what's going on. It actually makes people feel safe. What makes people feel unsafe in a relationship is when you don't tell Susie directly that it bothers you when she's late, and you go gossip about it maybe with some other coworkers at work, or you tell somebody else, but you're not telling Susie directly to her face. Stating clearly what you need in a relationship actually builds trust, and it usually builds connection. Let's talk about some of the reasons why people don't like to say no. That's another one that I see a lot in my private practice as a therapist. Clients come in and they're all angry at a friend because the friend asked them to do something, like maybe stop on their way home from work and deliver some water bottles to their house. And my client will come in and be all mad at their friend for even asking them that, mad that they said yes when what they really want to do is say, no, I had plans to go to the gym after work. Now I have to drop these water bottles off. And what my client and I usually realize is that it's a boundary issue, that they could have said no to their friend, no, I can't bring the water bottles after work. I already made plans to go to the gym. But they felt kind of bad about that or guilty saying no, so they said yes. So why do people say yes when what they really know they want to do is say no? Often people say yes because they've been taught it's mean or bad to say no. In our culture, it's really good to be generous and helpful. And most of us are generous and helpful, but it's impossible to be generous and helpful to everybody all the time. There are going to be times that you need to say no. Maybe you need to do your own self-care. Maybe you already had plans. Maybe you're exhausted. It's okay to say no sometimes. Another reason I see that people say yes when what they want to do is say no is that they want to be liked. Deep down, they want to be liked, and they're afraid that if they say, no, I can't bring those water bottles by after work, that their friend's not going to like them anymore, that they might lose friends or damage the relationship. It's so much easier for most of us to say yes than it is to say no. Another reason people often say yes is that they want to avoid the conflict. For many of us, it's so difficult to cause any kind of conflict or to have a difficult conversation. To avoid having to have a difficult conversation, we'll say, yes, I'll bring the water bottles by, and then we'll be kind of aggravated about it because what we really wanted to do was go to our yoga class or go work out after work, and now instead of doing that, we're dropping off water bottles at a friend's house. I think often the person we're really aggravated with is ourselves because we wish we could have said no, but we felt bad. We didn't want the person not to like us. We didn't want to have a difficult conversation. And so we said yes when what we really meant is say no. I want to tell you really clearly that it is okay to say no sometimes. It's okay to take care of yourself. It's okay to take care of your own mental health, to take time for yourself. It's not selfish. It's not unhelpful. What you're doing is taking care of yourself. And let's talk about saying yes. It's fantastic to say yes. I'm not saying don't ever say yes. I'm saying make sure it's a true yes. If you stop and check in with yourself and the answer is yes, by all means, it's fantastic. Go ahead and help. That's not a problem. We usually have a problem with saying no. So how do we even know what our true yes or true no is? I find that it's as simple as taking 20 seconds to check in with yourself. When your friend calls and says, hey, after work, I know you may be going to the gym, but would you mind stopping, picking up these water bottles, bringing them to my house? I could use the help. You just take 20 seconds to check in with yourself. You get quiet, you sort of drop the question into the emptiness and say, yes, I totally want to do that. I would love to stop by and then I can see you after work. That sounds great. Let's do it. Or you can check in and say, no, I'm sorry. I wish I could, but I can't do it. I already signed up for a class at the gym. It's that simple. Some of us may need to practice a little bit. If you are used to being the person that always says yes, you might need to practice a way to say no. I find it's easiest to keep it really simple. A good line I often use is, I wish I could. And keep it really clear. It's more challenging for everybody involved if you leave it ambiguous. So I wouldn't say, oh, I don't think I can, maybe some other time, because then you're going to get someone who just says, oh, what time? How about, could you do it this time then? Could you do it this time then? Usually keep it short, keep it simple, keep it clear. You can be kind, but you have to be kind of firm. Because let me warn you, if you are the person who always says yes, and people in your life, at work, or your family especially, boundaries are always hardest with family, and they're used to you always saying yes, there might be a little bit of pushback when you say no. People might test that boundary, so you need to be firm. No, I can't do that for you today. I already made plans to do this, period. You'll have plenty of opportunity to say yes when it's a genuine yes. Don't worry. But if it's no, check in with yourself, state it clearly, kindly, firmly. And you might get a little bit of pushback, so you might have to practice, especially with people who are used to you always being the yes person. That's usually your family and the people closest to you. You may need to practice being brave and courageous and trying something new and doing your best with it. Some people might get a little frustrated because they're used to you always saying yes. That's okay. They'll get used to it. Once you set the boundary and you do it again and again, people will get more comfortable with it. To sum up, I'll just say, good boundaries are better for your relationships with people. Trust me. If you set the boundaries cleanly and firmly and consistently, people will get used to it. People will begin to respect you and trust you because they'll know when they ask something of you that you'll say no if you don't want to do it, and you'll say yes if you really do. And that's so important in our relationships with people. People will really trust you. They know they can count on you to be honest. And if setting boundaries is new for you, you may need to practice a little bit. You may need to rehearse what you're going to say. You might make some mistakes, but that's okay. Just stay with it. Keep practicing. Be brave. And even if you're saying no to somebody you care about, what you're saying yes to is yourself. You're saying yes to your own self-care, your own mental health, yes to what you need. And that's not selfish. You're taking care of yourself, and it's okay. So I'd love to hear from you now in the comments. Let me know, how do you do with boundaries? Is it hard to set boundaries with any group of people or people in your life? Have you had any good experience with boundaries that you can share with us? What do you think of the video? I would love to interact with you in the comments. And be sure to let me know if there are other videos that you'd like me to make on the channel. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time, guys. Bye.